Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to this beginner's guide for the Crust, where I'll walk you through these different steps and tips to help you get you on your way in building that perfect lunar base. Part of the fun of this game is that you can play it just the way you like. There isn't only one perfect way to do it, but I thought this would be a nice start. But I've included some footnotes at the end of the video so we can discuss some alternatives. Now let's go. After you've chosen a difficulty, you'll notice that we've started with the game paused. Call down your cargo pods, keep the game paused, and we're starting with step number 1, research. You'll be spending a lot of time constructing, but what you always want to have running in the background is your research. Now you'll start with a small amount of science points income, seen at the top right of your screen, so we need to kickstart it. And the way we can do that is by purchasing extra science income. To do this, go to the Commerce Center at the bottom right here, then to the Cross Solutions menu and go to Science Points here. Now you can spend funds to purchase extra points. The number in front of the hourglass icon here indicates how long these points will be available, after which they'll be deduced from the respective total at the top of your main screen. Now I recommend not spending too much money here, so I'd go for the 100 points for 90 days option for each type of income, because you'll need the remaining balance later on. Now doing this will give your research a boost, helping you to unlock the hard needed starting buildings and upgrades. So now that we have a good amount of science income, it's time to choose our first tax to research. We're still paused here, so go over to the research screen at the bottom right, where I recommend selecting the following. From the engineering tree here, pick the only one available, regolith pressing. Keep this one in mind because it's only a couple of points worth, so it'll be done really quickly. Then go over to the fundamental tree and pick the solar panel medium, or medium solar panel, whatever. Next, go to the social tree and pick license for tender system. Now we need to research a couple of more engineering techs after regolith pressing, so normally we would let time resume, but first we need to complete another important step in our initial setup, so let's go over to step 3, where we'll look at placing our first buildings. Because you only have limited starting supplies depending on what difficulty you've chosen, what I want to show you here is how to build your first group of buildings without having to spend too many funds on purchasing extra materials at the market. You don't want to waste too much capital because we've already spent some on our science points, so we need to spend our funds wisely at the beginning here. From the top, start by placing 4 batteries and 4 small solar panels. Now it doesn't really matter how or where you place them, but usually I place them near the elevator because I need to hook them up eventually anyways. And this way I can create some sort of a snaking pattern with my wires if I start expanding here. So I do it like this. After you've done this, then go below surface by pressing tab and focus on setting up the following. First, build a charging station so your drones can recharge. And then build a drone reconfiguration module so you can assign drones to mining duty. After you've pre-built all of these buildings, then make sure you attach all of them to the power grid, so the ones down here and the ones at the surface using electrical wire. Which brings me to a tip, as long as we're on the topic of placing buildings anyways. When you want to connect a row of newly constructed buildings to your power grid, keep in mind that you cannot connect them all by seemingly dragging one long wire from the furthest building at the back of that row all the way to the front. It'll look like all buildings are connected, but you'll notice that the yellow connection cylinder icon next to a building in the middle will remain at 0, meaning that this building is not connected. So you'll have to place wires from building to building in order to connect them all together. Keep this in mind because otherwise it might take a long time before you spot the problem, and that would be a waste. Okay, so now it's time to start the clock and have our drones construct the first couple of buildings that we've just prepared. In the meantime, our research is being conducted in the background, so if you've kept the engineering tech in mind, then you'll notice you're about to finish that one already. Once it has, go over to the engineering tech tree and pick the smelting furnace, geophysical prospecting and the conveyor Mark 1 techs in that order. Now you can build a pressing module underground so you can produce smart concrete from the regolith that your mining drones will be producing in a minute. Because by now your drones should have finished that drone reconfiguration module, so you can go over there, click on it and you can convert 5 logistics drones into mining drones. And don't worry, you can also swap them back at any point in time if you need more drones to transport resources. But you can now use the excavation mode from the radio menu, so when you right click, you can have a certain area marked and then the mining drones will start mining it. I suggest you select just an area around the elevator that's fastest. Now this will produce regolith and the remaining logistical drones will bring the regolith to the pressing module. And by now the smelting furnace research should be done as well, but before we build that one, here's an important tip about research in general. The Crust has a slightly different approach in how this is conducted as opposed to most games. It's not done in sequence per se, as in one by one, but it can be done in parallel, meaning you can work on up to 3 different technologies if all 3 are from another branch. To give you an example, you can see here that automatic repair is made up out of 3,250 fundamental and 1,900 engineering points. Let's say for argument's sake you have 200 points of income for each category. That means in this case that the engineering part will be done much faster as there are fewer points to research. But while the fundamental part is still being worked on, you can queue up another technology that has at least some engineering points. For example again, I can select the rolling mill technology here, then I will have 2 techs being researched at the same time. In the end, you can keep track of how far along each branch is by keeping an eye on the indicator section on the left side. So always make sure you have several techs queued up, same as what we've done before so far, so you don't waste any of your science points. Now it's time for the next step, which is constructing a smelting furnace and an ore detector once they're done researching. The smelting furnace can produce several types of products, but for now select steel. The ore detector will allow you to use some of your energy reserves to scan for deposits hidden in the bedrock. Once you do find an iron deposit, here's a tip on how to quickly get your first iron oxide to smelt into steel. You can assign some of your drones to mine directly at deposits, and instead of regolith, they'll produce iron oxide, which can be used by a furnace to make steel from. And at some point you want to place an extractor plus refinery on it to automate this process. But if you want to have some steel fast without having to purchase it on the market or maybe spend more materials to place all those extra buildings, then this is the way. So how do you assign your drones to mine from a deposit? After uncovering a vein, go into excavation mode, hover over the deposit and you'll see a number of icons. Here you can simply select the number of drones you want to assign. Now the drones won't be faster than an extractor in the long run, and do remember that oxide mined this way can only be brought to a furnace if that doesn't already have a conveyor belt attached to it. Alright, congratulations are in order because right now you have a small yet effective startup colony. Now I did promise to discuss some footnotes, and they're mainly about some alternative approaches and what you might do from here on. Like I said, there isn't a golden path to victory here as in just one way to play the game. For example, you can totally invest in buying more resources from the market as fast as possible to allow for a more rapid expansion, but it's gonna come at the cost of spending additional funds instead. So it all depends on what kind of player you are and at what pace you want to play the game. You can also choose to skip assigning drones to mining and just straight away go for placing an extractor, then a refinery plus furnace setup. Ultimately, that is where you want to go, where you want to move towards, but personally I'd like to wait until you can place a multi-regolith refinery to use, because it uses slightly less power and less space as opposed to having 4 separate refineries for each type of oxide. Also important to note, this setup is 99% power efficient, meaning all of these buildings are covered by the 4 batteries and solar panels outside. When you start placing down more buildings, then you also need to expand your power grid, which is why I recommended researching the medium solar panel at the start, because that's easily the best and likely the first upgrade you'll perform by replacing the smaller panels with medium ones. But as I said in the beginning, where you go from here is really up to you. The purpose of this video was just to help new players get on their feet and explain some things along the way. If you think I succeeded, then give the video a like for support, which I very much appreciate, and leave your thoughts about the game in general in a comment. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have fun gaming, be nice to one another, and see you later.